Welcome to the Treasured Tales of Ireland. This is a collection of tales that have been told for centuries around fires, in feast halls, by storytellers, bards, and druids. Irish folktales and fairy tales were passed down from generations with an almost superstitious commitment to accuracy. Storytellers would gather around in the evening to tell the same tale, and if any person varied, they would put it to the council to determine which was the correct version. In this way, stories were recited and transmitted for hundreds of years, nearly word for word. Now, around the 5th or 6th century, when Christianity was introduced to Ireland, the clergy started to record these tales while trying to also rid themselves of their pagan ways. As the years went by, we find that Christianity crept into many of their stories, creating their own brand of fairy tale tradition. Scholars divided early literature into 4 main cycles: the Mythological Cycle, the Ulster Cycle, the Fennin Cycle, and the King or Historical Cycle. And where does the folklore about the little people, the banshees, the fairies, the leprechauns, changelings, and other mythological characters fit in? The Mythological Cycle. The Mythological Cycle contains the stories of gods and goddesses and how the Irish came to be. It is home to stories from the golden age of Ireland. It began with Tua de Donan, the people of the goddess. Danu were a divine race who possessed great magical powers and were learned and gifted, according to the Irish legend. They came to Ireland to take over the country, and when they landed, they set fire to their boats so there would be no turning back. The smoke from the burning boats darkened the sun and filled the land for 3 days. And the Fir-Bolgs, who lived there, thought the Tua de Donan had arrived in a magic mist. The Tua de Donan defeated the Fir-Bolgs and became rulers of Ireland. But another enemy, the demonic Fomori, enslaved and tyrannized them until they too were defeated at the Battle of Mortora. The Tua de Donan ruled Ireland for many years until they were defeated by another wave of invaders, the Milesians. Now, although they were banished by these newcomers, they did not leave Ireland. Instead, they went underground to live in the shees, mounds, and earthworks that are scattered all over the country. Above, the human inhabitants of Ireland, descendants of the Milesians, lived and died and were helped by, sometimes hindered by, the Tua de Donan, who became known as the people of the She. The Tua, or the little folk, from time to time, these mysterious beings would come into the mortal world on Halloween and May Day in particular to mingle with humans and come and go in their affairs. But they always returned to the kingdom under the earth, that happy other world, the land of youth. The Ulster Cycle represents Ireland's heroic age, with stories of battles, wars, famous heroes and kings, and epic love is set in pagan times. Conall mac Nessa was the king of Ulster, and he and his followers, the Red Branch, lived in a large fort at Armagh in the north of Ireland. Fergus, Conall, and Leary were among the most famous of Connor's champions. But the greatest of them all was Cuchulainn. The druids, judges, and bards of the Ulster courts foretold the future and counseled and entertained the king. The women of Ulster, Emer, Deirdre, Lavercombe, were strong and forceful. Connor's fort was called Eamon Macha, It was given its name by the goddess Macha. Macha, after a race in which she had been forced to run against Kana's horses, although she was pregnant. When the twins were born, Macha gave a loud scream, and the strength of all the men who heard it ebbed away. As she died, Macha cursed the Ulstermen. "From this day forward, you will be afflicted by this weakness because of your cruel treatment of me. At the hour of your greatest need, you will become as powerless as I am now, and your descendants will be afflicted in the same way for 9 generations. My name is Macha, and my name and the name of my twins will stick to this place forever." These prophecies came true. The fort was called Macha, and the twin Machas from then on. And for many years, the Ulstermen lay powerless at the time of their greatest need. Cuchulainn was the only man to escape the weakness, and that was because his father Lug, like Macha herself, was one of the Tuatha De Danann. The Finn cycle of Irish mythology primarily focus on the great warrior Finna MacCool and his many exploits. Long after a band of men called the Fianna roamed through Ireland, this troop was made up of the noblest, bravest, swiftest, strongest, most honorable men of the land. From November to May, the Fianna were the soldiers of the king. They kept the country safe from pirates and invaders, and punished public enemies at home in the summer months. They received no pay, but they lived off the land fishing and hunting for food and selling the skins of animals. To be accepted as one of the Fianna, a man had to obey certain rules and prove himself in trials and strength, bravery and skill. He had to swear to be loyal to the leader, to respect all women, and to help the poor. He had to study the art of poetry so he could compose his own poems and memorize traditional rhymes and stories. When he had pledged all these things, his comrades in arms tested his courage and skill. If he came through these trials as a brave-hearted warrior, a light-footed hunter, and an eloquent poet, he was allowed to join the company. The captain of the Fianna had great power and sat next to the king at the banquet table. Finna MacCool of Clan Bosna was the most famous leader of them all, and during his time they had a heyday of such glory that the stories of their adventures were told all over Ireland from that day on. The King Cycle, or the Historical Cycle, are a collection of stories about the high kings of Ireland that provide valuable insight into the values, beliefs, and social structures of ancient Irish society. The tales emphasize the importance of leadership, justice, and preservation of order, reflecting the ideal and aspirations of a society that celebrated its rulers and leaders. These tales are essentially about kingship, the fortunes of kings, and kingship as a marriage between the king and the realm, and sometimes the goddess, a symbol of the land. Prosperity in the realm was intimately connected to the quality of the king. In addition, the king was frequently bound by certain restrictions called gisa. The more power you had, the more this needed to be contained. To break the gisa was to unravel the sacred bond between the king and the people. They represented a wonderful body of wisdom as to what constitutes a good king, one that brings sustainable prosperity to the kingdom. Some of the more well-known stories in this cycle include stories of Cormac MacArt, Conair Mór, Neil of the Nine Hostages, Anibudad, Laksoin, and Mongan, among others. These are semi-historical figures, but they represent the principles of exemplary kingship in their successes and failings. Since Ireland is said to have the largest collection of stories in the world, we may be here for a while. I look forward to bringing these tales from the four cycles to life through my weekly tellings. Rest assured that I work to keep the myths, legends, folk, and fairy tales alive, one story at a time. Slán go fóill. Bye for now.